Okay. Over the past 15 years, there have been some 10 experiments that have been reported, carried out, reported in the open literature that have given the biosecurity community a great deal of concern. This is over the past 15 years, but I think it was the real wake-up call, the real game changer, were the Fouché-Karaoke H5N1 influenza flu transmissibility experiments. And this prompted, as you've heard from Koos, this prompted the Netherlands to take on the task of trying to get a biosecurity risk management program set up. And at the same time, this, or about a year later, actually, they were way ahead of it. About a year later, this prompted also the German federal government to commission the German Ethics Council to draft an opinion on the subject of biosecurity and freedom of research. And they asked the Ethics Council to do this because of the complexity of the legal, ethical, and political questions that were raised by biosecurity relevant research. And they also asked the Ethics Council to assess whether the existing legal framework and codes of conduct in the sciences and in the private sector provide an adequate basis for dealing with research, funding, applications in a responsible manner. And so with that, the German Ethics Council, the council is composed of about 26 members. And so they appointed 10 members out of that group to form a biosecurity working group to handle this question from the German government. And so they made an appraisal of all of these things. And in the end, they concluded that the current legal situation revealed that dual-use research in the life sciences is covered by a large number of legal stipulations, but that these involve mainly safety considerations and not biosecurity. And indeed, in Germany is overloaded sometimes with regulations. And Germany has a very, very strict genetic engineering law. And so that is all in place. And approval system and so forth in Germany. And for experiments in genetic engineering. But really nothing in the way of biosecurity. And they concluded that there is no coherent regulatory system in Germany that aims directly at minimizing and preventing misuse of work in the life sciences. Also, that's a biosecurity issue. And they also looked at codes of conduct. And I must say that the committee that was looking into this was composed of the 10 members of the Ethics Commission. But they asked me as an outside person to come in and work with the committee. And this was probably because I have a natural science background in microbiology, immunology, and also had been working on biosecurity issues for several years. So they also looked at the codes of conduct. And there are several codes of conduct in Germany. One is from the German Research Foundation, the main funder of German research. And also the Max Planck Society has a code, and also the Leibniz Association has a code in Germany. But the council concluded that a code of conduct that covers all persons and institutions participating in relevant research in Germany is necessary. But like the Netherlands, they also concluded that this was necessary but not sufficient, really, to cover or to deal with biosecurity risks in life sciences work. And so they thought it was necessary to complement measures designed to promote a sense of responsibility among scientists with legal obligations. And the ethical analysis side of it led to the conclusion that scientific responsibility in the area of biosecurity is mainly to be governed by the precautionary principle. And the Ethics Council also felt, though, that the primary responsibility for work in the life sciences rested with the researchers, and that they must themselves be capable of estimating the potential for risks and misuse of their work. And so with that in mind, the recommendations that they made to the German government begin with raising the awareness of dual-use biosecurity issues. And they realized that life scientists can only carry out effective risk assessment of their own work if they understand dual-use biosecurity issues and can really relate to them. And so they felt that awareness raising was definitely necessary. And perhaps you've heard of many surveys that have been made among life scientists that they have really very little awareness of dual-use biosecurity issues. It's just not a thing on their program. It's not something that they really consider. This is getting better and better, and especially with the events that are occurring. But in any case, that awareness raising is still necessary. So I don't have time to go through. I'll just have to name some of the recommendations. There are only 5. And but we've put out this book on the table outside. I don't know if you got a copy or saw it or something. But in any case, the recommendations are only about 10 pages long. The whole book is about, well, it's over 200 pages. And so if you look at the recommendations, and these are kept, of course, at a very minimum in the recommendation section, but you can always refer to a chapter in the main text that will explain why that particular recommendation was sought out and put forward, and the arguments that were behind that. So I'll just very, very briefly name the recommendations and just highlight what the content is. The first recommendation, as I said, raising the level of awareness for questions of biosecurity in the scientific community. And they thought that by including questions of biosecurity in undergraduate and graduate curricula, as well as in training programs for ancillary staff in the relevant branches of science, along with the suggestions of how to proceed in doing this, were necessary. And so this is the first recommendation. The second recommendation is indeed the elaboration of a National Biosecurity Code of Conduct for responsible research that defines what constitutes a responsible manner of dealing with biosecurity questions. And the code should be expressly adopted by all relevant public and private research facilities throughout Germany, and should be elaborated in more detail as the need arises. And then the next recommendation is about research funding, and that public and private funding bodies in Germany were to look at the recommendations of a commission that I will get to, and that the funding would only be made if the code of conduct was accepted by the people applying for the grant. And research would not be funded if the project had received a negative vote from a commission that was to be formed.